Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Runes. Now, today we're going to do something unusual, the Magic Gathering Top 10 Web. And now, at number 10, we're going to start off with Astra of the Endless Web from Theros Beyond Death. It's a rare, only averaging a price of 21 cents. And this one is, well, it has reach. It's a 3/5. And whenever opponent casts an instant or service spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So if the opponent doesn't have either of those, this card is just 4 for a 3/5 reach. Yeah, it's totally not worth it, and that's why it's at number 10. So let's move on to number 9. We have one of my favorite walls in all of Magic. We got Sunweb from various sets, being rare for only, that's right, 30 cents on the market at the time of this video. Costs 4 mana, but it's a 5/6 flying wall. So Sunweb cannot block creatures with power of 2 or less. Doesn't matter to me. I just think that's cool. It's just because it's a powerful wall, and I've always been a fan of walls. That's the reason why it's at number 9. So let's move on to number 8. We have Magnetic Web from Tempest. It's a rare with an average price of 64 cents on the market. Costs 2 mana and does cost 1 mana to put a magnet counter on it. So it says if any creature with magnet counters on it attacks all creatures with magnetic counters on them, that the attacking player controls attack if able. If any creature with the magnetic counters on it attacks all creatures with magnetic counters on them with the defending player controls block that creature if able. So it kind of works to your advantage if you really want to play this creature blocking thing. Other than that, it's not very that impressive. So let's move on to number 7, where we have a shrine card. It's Hodin of Life's Web from Eternal Masters or Champions of Kamigawa. It's an uncommon with an average price of just under $2. It costs 5 mana to play, which is pretty standard for an enchantment shrine. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 color spirit creature token into play for each shrine you control. So it's really cool if you build a shrine deck. So this is actually a very playable card on top of it just being a web card. So let's move on to number 6. We have In the Web of War from Betrayers of Kamigawa. It's a rare going for $2.38 on the market at the time of this video. And this one's actually very impressive, especially if you're maybe combining it with green-red, because it does cost 5 mana to put into play, which is very expensive. So I would say with green, those creatures that cost 8, this would be very helpful because whenever a creature comes into play under your control, it gets plus 2/0 and gains haste until end of turn. And as said in many videos, you guys know I am a fan of haste. So let's move on halfway down the list to number 5. We have Moijin of Life's Web from Mystery Booster or Champions of Kamigawa. It seems like most cards are from the Kamigawa series. It's a rare with an average price of $2.53 on the market. This is a spirit. It costs, well, quite a bit. It costs 9 for this 8/8. Comes in play with a divinity counter on it if you played it from your hand. It is indestructible as long as it has a divinity counter, and remove it if you want to put any number of creature cards from your hand into play. So it is very versatile. I put it here because it is an 8/8 and can be indestructible, so that could be very annoying to an opponent, even though it could be bounced back to your hand or whatever. So let's move on to number 4. Decimator Web, Mirrodin Besieged. It's a rare going with an average price of 36 cents on the market. It costs 4 mana to put this artifact. Then it costs another 4 to tap it. It says, say, target opponent loses 2 life, gets to the poison counter, then puts the top 6 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I think for 4 mana, this is very incredible. I am surprised this card is not worth more. It's very versatile, and you can keep playing cards on top of the 4 mana this card does. I just think this is incredible. I should make a deck death out of this one. But let's move on to number 3. Web of Inertia. It's from Judgment. It's an uncommon with an average price of $134. This one costs 3 mana, which is very impressive for an uncommon. It says at the beginning of each opponent's combat phase, that player may remove a card in his or her graveyard from the game. If that player doesn't, creatures he or she controls can't attack. So that is definitely a good control enchantment card. I think this is very cool, especially if you are going to play some kind of like Zurum Orb, which can really affect the opponent if this is a very playable card. This is why it's at number 3. So let's move on to number 2. To Sabo's Web from Invasion or World Champ deck of 2001. A rare being an average price of $3.02 at the time of this video. Costs 2 mana for this continuous artifact. Where it comes to play, draw a card, very cool. Lands with activated ability that don't produce mana don't untap during their controller's untapped steps. So I think this is a very playable card and a real card that you can play in a deck. It would annoy the opponent more than anything else because many people would play lands that have activated abilities. So this is why it's at number 2. I think has potential to be a really good card, a good web card, and a good deck card. But let's move on to number 1. That's right. Mana Web from Weatherlight, and a rare with an average price of $21.30 at the time of this video. It costs 3 mana for this impressive card, which says, whenever a land a target opponent controls is tapped for mana, tap all lands he or she controls that can produce any type of mana that land can produce. Well, this is the ultimate control card. I would recommend putting this in a blue deck just to add more control and annoy them over and over again. And that's it. This is the top 10 web cards, believe it or not. So I hope you guys have a good day and a good evening.